pay very close attention, because here's a secret. Here's the big secret, folks. Welcome to the science of the overlap. Now here's the big secret. You gotta understand something. Here's the witchcraft, the switchcraft, the wordcraft. You know what I mean? When you hear people, first of all, when you hear people say, I worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? I worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's very important. You understand what I'm saying? And you gotta understand the story of Abraham is that Abraham was given a vow to, be the father of many nations, and he was gonna be, and the story of Abraham go deep, especially if you go into, other, type of, information and stuff like that. So you have right there, you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Abraham was told to sacrifice his son Isaac, but then the angel gave him, the word angel means message, right? He had communication with the father. He gave him a message saying, hey, listen, don't sacrifice your son. You know what I mean? And then what happened after that? Isaac had what? Jacob, right? And then came Israel, right? But the secret is this. Abraham is the father principle. You know what I mean? The perpetual twilight praying principle, the psychoid principle. I forgot to add that there. Right, so you got to understand something. The inner secret is the access to the perpetual twilight plane, or the father principle, or applying the father principle. You don't sacrifice what makes you happy. You don't sacrifice your sovereignty, your happiness, what makes you laugh, what gives you joy. You understand what I'm saying? You what? You Jacob. You supersede and replace. To supersede and replace is to what? You don't sacrifice yourself. You sacrifice somebody else. You sacrifice somebody else. You understand what I'm saying? So on this yellow sun grid 666 plane, it's all about servitude and sacrifice. You know what I mean? So you got to make sure that you understand that this inner secret of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is what? When you read the Bible and it says, if you don't worship the God of your forefathers, the God of your forehead fathers, because your head, your brain right here, you don't mean God right here. The father principle, if you don't worship the God of your forefathers, you're going to go what? Into slavery. The God of your forefathers said what? You don't sacrifice what make you happy. You supersede and replace. And you create constant struggle with God. That's what Israel means. Israel has two meanings. He will have power with God, and he will struggle with God. He will fight with God. So you got to understand that the whole trick is that people that worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob understand that they have to make you have constant struggle between maintaining your sovereignty and end up in servitude. You know what I mean? And they don't sacrifice what make them happy. They're Isaac. They what? Supersede and replace. That's what Jacob means. Jacob means to supersede and replace, to supplant. You know what I mean? And then what? They become Israel, he who has power with God, who have access to God. So when you have when you have communication with the perpetual twilight, the psychoid, all God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? What happened? You maintain the communication so you can have this proper angle right here. You maintain this communication to make sure that you don't have your 9 turn to a 6. You don't sacrifice your Isaac, what makes you happy, your laughter, your sovereignty, your freedom. You understand? You what? You don't just stay there. You what? You supersede and replace. You supersede and replace somebody else. You know what I mean? You make sure that you put somebody else in place of your karma, or your karmic loop, or your karmic debt. You understand what I'm saying? And you maintain your 3 and maintain their disconnection. You know what I mean? The God of not sacrificing their 9, but sacrificing yours. These people worship the God of not sacrificing their 9, but sacrificing yours. And for you to have constant struggle to maintain your 9. So they disconnect your 3 and maintain their access. You know what I mean? So they don't sacrifice what makes them happy. They sacrifice what makes you happy. You know what I mean? Science of the overlap, this is what it is. You might say, well, Abraham never existed. Abraham, Brahman, Sargon, all kind of, deities and all that. You know what I mean? This is all mythology. You know what I mean? And there's an inner, whether you want to call it esoteric cult, is an inner, deeper meaning. And it's right there. Abraham, father, you know what I mean? The father principle. Isaac, laughter, happiness, laughter. Jacob, supersede and replace. You don't sacrifice what makes you your Isaac. You supersede and replace. Because on this plane, there's always going to be some type of, debt to be played. So you got to make sure that you hex, and you sacrifice, and you siphon. You know what I mean? And you create constant struggle. You know what I'm saying? Science of the overlap, www.ofesferc.com.